There's nothing more fun in the spring than starting your own plants and getting them transplanted and ready to go outside. And we've got some great products here at Anderson Seed to really help you be much more successful with your transplanting and your hardening off and getting your plants ready to go outside if you do it correctly. So I've got this really neat new product. These seedlings, these tomato seedlings, are only 2 weeks old. In fact, I started them 2 weeks ago yesterday. So we started them in our little nanodome seed starting kits, and they've germinated. They came up in about 5 days, and so when they were just little teeny tiny seedlings, I watered them with this, and this is called Kangaroots. It's a new product from Bush Doctor, and it's full of mycorrhiza, so a natural fungus, but it's a good fungus instead of a bad fungus. It's got beneficial microbes and bacteria in there that make your plants grow like crazy, and a really mild fertilizer. So this is basically a root drench to water your transplants, your seedlings with, to help them root out and get established faster. The bigger the root system, bigger your plants are going to be, more productive they are also going to be as well too. So watered them with the Bush Doctor after about a week. So they were just barely germinated and up, and they've already started shooting roots out the sides of the peat pellets. Can you see all those little root hairs coming out of there? These plants are only 2 weeks old, and they've shot roots out of their peat pellets like crazy. I've never seen peat pellets root out as fast as these guys have. So the Kangaroots is a great way to get your seedlings ready for transplanting. And I'm going to transplant that into a little larger container to get them ready to go outside here in the next few weeks. But while we're waiting for that, I'm using the Kangaroots for some other things as well too. Since it's full of the beneficial microbes and bacterias and all those mycorrhiza, they make roots just take off like crazy, if you can't see by the tomato seedling. So I took some onion plants, and we bring in onion plants like crazy in the springtime, and they've only been dug up probably about a week or so, but the roots really dry out quite a bit. So when you're getting ready to plant, if you've got dry roots on your onion plants, they need to be hydrated up a little bit, and your plants will transplant much more successfully than they will if you just stick them right out there in the garden. So we actually take the Kangaroots, mix it up at the regular rate, and we soak the onions in there for about 3 to 4 hours. Now these have only been soaking for about an hour, but you can already tell that the root systems are starting to hydrate up. So can you see the difference? These are all dry and small and shriveled up. These are starting to hydrate, and they're starting to expand. If we leave them in that concoction for another couple hours, those roots are going to turn white and big and full and plump, and they're going to transplant much better than a dried up root system will. So take the Kangaroots, mix it up, water, put them in a little bit of water, put in a container, soak your onion plants, soak your tomato transplants, soak your peppers and your squashes and your melons, soak them in that so that it will encourage those root systems to start to take off, and you won't believe how much better success you'll have in transplanting. But to transplant our tomatoes, since they're only 2 weeks old and they're really ready to transplant, they're starting to put on their second set of leaves, and so I'll use peat pots because I can take these pots and transplant them right outside. I've got a nice potting soil down the bottom, so we're going to use our Fertilizer Ultimate potting mix. I've filled it up about halfway or so. I'll take my transplant that's been soaked in the Kangaroots, and I'll put that right down there in the bottom. Try not to damage those root hairs when you put it down there. You don't need to like grind it down into the bottom of the pot or into the soil. Just place it gently in there, and then I'll just backfill it with a little bit more soil that I set aside right here. Just kind of tamp it down slightly, and then I will water that again with my Kangaroots to encourage those roots to take off some more. That mild fertilizer that's in there won't damage the plant as it's trying to re-root. I'll moisten that down really good, and it's going to be good to go for another hopefully 3 weeks or so until those tomatoes are ready to transplant outside. They'll probably be about that big in 2 to 3 weeks and ready to go. When I transplant outside, what I'll usually do to harden them off and get them ready so that they won't sunburn and they are much more capable of handling the cold is I'll take those transplants and I'll put them outside in a partially shady, partially sunny location, and then bring them in at night. And I'll do that for 3 or 4 days, get them used to being outside, and then bring them in at night. But then after those 3 or 4 days, I'll put them out in that same location, leave them outside for a couple days, overnight. Let them just kind of get used to being outside overnight, and make sure and water them, make sure and take care of them like you would if they were indoors, but just leave them outside. Then after 2 or 3 days of that, then you can transplant them right out into the garden. By hardening those plants off that way and gradually making that transition from inside to outside, your plants will not stress. They won't have as much transplant shock, and they'll take off a lot faster. And this goes for plants you've started yourself, as well as the ones you've come in and bought from us or anybody else as well too. They need that hardening off process because they're going from perfect conditions inside the greenhouse to our imperfect Cache Valley conditions outside, and they're just not used to it. They're not ready for it. So you've got to harden those plants off and get them ready. And when you're planting outside, be sure and use a great fertilizer like the Natural Guard Tomato and Vegetable Food. It's a complete fertilizer, has mycorrhiza, it's got beneficial microbes, and it's got a burst of calcium in there, which is great for your tomatoes so you don't get blossom end rot, and a nice slow release fertilizer to keep them happy for about 2 months. So it's a great organic, all natural fertilizer. It's going to keep your plants going for about 2 months, and hopefully you'll have great success transplanting your seedlings outside this spring.